All right, hey VC, I'm Jamie. Welcome back. We are back with another video and back with, yes, more vinyl finds. I have a few records left over from the last batch, which I didn't get to, and of course, always acquiring some more vinyl. So let's get right to it. Different one to start things off. Never thought I would come across this album. I've seen it talked about. Controversial album, if you will, An Evening with Wild Man Fisher. This is on the Bizarre Reprise label. That's Frank Zappa's label. Wild Man Fisher was a Frank Zappa discovery. And this is a sprawling double album. Wild Man Fisher, basically his song, or his signature song, is a song called Merry-Go-Round. And even on the credits here, it says Merry-Go-Round. This is Wild Man's theme song, sort of. And he revisits the song throughout the entire double live album. As I say, it's sprawling. It's a lot of street recorded conversations. Side 3 is, side 2 is all a cappella, completely unaccompanied. As I said, he keeps going back to the song Merry-Go-Round, and there's a lot of conversations going on. So this is the double album. Certainly not for everyone. And the write-up on the back here, Wildman Fisher is a real person who lives in Hollywood, California. He has since passed. He used to be very shy. He didn't have any friends. One day he decided to be more aggressive. He would write his own songs and sing to people and tell them he wasn't shy anymore. When he did this, everyone thought he was crazy. His mother had him committed to a mental institution twice. And there's a little write-up from Frank Zappa, but the last paragraph says, please listen to this album several times before you decide whether or not you like it, or what Wildman Fisher is all about. He has something to say to you, even though you might not want to hear it. So yeah, this is the double album. I mean, it brings up a lot of conversations about mental health issues, about exploitation, that sort of thing. So yes, An Evening with Wild Man Fisher. Not necessarily for everyone's taste, but I've seen this album talked about. I think there's been documentaries on this individual. Not for everyone, but an absolutely fascinating, disturbing journey through this double album. And there's Frank Zappa and the mothers on the back there. So Wild Man Fisher from, I want to say, like maybe this is like 1968 or something in that ballpark. Yeah, 1968. There you go. So Wild Man Fisher. Okay, and some other interesting finds that I come across. I came across this album. This is the band People, and this is the album I Love You. And that was pretty much the only hit for this band, I believe, from San Jose, California. Very kind of psych rock. I really enjoyed this album. A lot of kind of humor in the album as well. The band didn't last too long, but was really thrilled to pick up this like original copy. This is a stereo copy on Capitol Records, People. And yeah, really happy to have picked that up. Some great 60s kind of psych rock kind of thing going on. And also, I picked up a band from Michigan. This is the Sunday Funnies. Was happy to come across this one from Michigan, I believe from Detroit, Michigan. And this album produced by Andrew Oldham, or Andrew Loog Oldham, of course, from the Rolling Stones, a manager of the Rolling Stones. And this is on the Motown Rare Earth label. This is one of the few quote-unquote white bands to be signed on Motown's Rare Earth label. A rock band with some soul going on. Apparently, Ardeen Taylor was originally supposed to produce this album. Ardeen Taylor, Canadian, on the Motown label, but when his song Indiana Wants Me became a hit, he had to leave the project, so they were able to get Andrew Loog Oldham to produce not only this album, but also their follow-up album. But as I say, I really, absolutely enjoyed this album. I can open up the gatefold here. It's an album I don't come across too often, but very happy to pick that one up. Okay, the next album is a reissue, and this is a band called, if I can get this back into the sleeve. All right, it's a band called the Pharaohs, and this is the Pharaohs in the Basement. I left just kind of the strip on here. The Pharaohs had an album called Awakening, and this was some discovered live stuff. And I kind of like the way they've kind of written it up here in terms of the sound on this particular album. They're saying the live tracks are fascinating because where Awakening, that album, sounds like an earthier and more Afro-centric version of Earth, Wind, and Fire, the much loopier and more jazz-oriented tracks here on this album, In the Basement, not to be confused with Glenn Kellaway in the Basement, or From the Basement. In the Basement, the music here is much sort of loopier and more jazz-oriented tracks, sounding more like Sun Ra jamming with the P-Funk All-Stars, and that's really the vibe that you get from this album. But yeah, very, very enjoyable. Okay, some used vinyl. An artist I don't really know a lot about, but this is Frank Miller, who's a UK artist. I want to say a Scottish artist. I could be wrong on this. And this is his band, like Frank Miller's Full House. And I really like the version he does of Jealous Guy on here. And he also has like the Memphis Horns on here. Nice kind of funky, soulful album, and rockin' too. So Frank Miller's Full House. I'll have to check out more Frank Miller. Okay, a wonderful Canadian artist, a great folk classic, still going strong, Valdy, and this is the album Hot Rocks on A&M Records, and again, that sort of folky, folk rock sound that he's got going on, but always an enjoyable performer. And speaking of enjoyable performers, can't go wrong with Little Steven, of course, of the E Street Band. This is Little Steven and the Disciples of Soul, and the album Men Without Women, and this is on EMI. From 1982. So happy to find that one. A live UB40 album. This is UB40 at Live in Moscow, and this is a double album. It is not gatefold, but in terms of the UB40 song catalog and the hits, it's got pretty much everything you need, and it was well recorded and on Virgin, and really enjoyed this one. Okay, I've always find it fascinating when they have a Miles Davis album, like Miles Davis Greatest Hits. How can you ever come up with Miles Davis Greatest Hits from a catalog from this individual, or even this jazz giant, like Greatest Hits? But it's all about marketing, isn't it? So this on Columbia, and you can see the song tracks there. A nice little sampler of some of the Columbia tracks from Miles Davis Greatest Hits. Okay, the band Heart, the Wilson Sisters, and this is Dog and Butterfly. You see this quite often. Dog and Butterfly, very lovely song, and of course the rockin' track Straight On is featured on this one. Nice gatefold there. Canadian band, this is the bridge between the Guess Who and Bachman Turner Overdrive. So this is the band Brave Belt with Randy Bachman and his brother. And interesting with this band, it also featured Chad Allen in the Expressions, which was the original Guess Who, or what the Guess Who kind of morphed into from Chad Allen and the Expressions. And then Burton Cummings came on as lead vocals with Chad Allen leaving, but Chad Allen back with Randy Bachman just briefly with this band. So this was Randy Bachman leaving the Guess Who, forming this band, Brave Belt, going more of a kind of a country rock thing with this Crazy Arms. And what's interesting for this album, so you've got Randy Bachman there with his brother along with Chad Allen, but then on the back you have C.F. Turner, who's not even credited on this, but C.F. Turner would come on board for this band, and I believe Chad Allen who's pictured here, would also then leave, and then they would morph into Bachman Turner Overdrive. But a nice real country rock sound. Crazy Arms, Crazy Eyes was the hit off this one, and then they would also have a hit that's not featured on this one called Dun Robin's Gone, which is another nice kind of country rock tune. Okay, a little bit more Cat Stevens, and this is Cat Stevens in the album. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it so? Is it so? Is it so? You say potato. This is on, of course, A&M Records, and from 1977. I've always been a fan of the song Old School Yard. Remember the days of the Old School Yard. This one getting more keyboards and kind of electronic sounds going on. Sort of a different sound for Cat Stevens at the time, from 1977. But happy to pick this one up. A double live album. The cover not in great shape. It was clearly like a library copy, but this is Journey Captured, and you think they'd have it like Captured Live or something like that, but this is a double live Journey album from all the songs and hits that they had at the time. Then, of course, then they would begin to explode in the 1980s, but this is from 1981. So you got songs like Lights is featured on here. You've got Lovin' Touchin' Squeezin', Wheel in the Sky, that sort of thing. So a nice double album. This is gatefold, so I can show it to you. And lots of pictures there. And there you go. And what was I reading the other day? Some trouble with Journey that Steve Perry is suing some of the former bandmates. Did I see the headline? Didn't get a chance to read the story, but oh boy. Okay, did I need this? Not necessarily. I do have this album already, Boston. I have it on vinyl CD, but of course this is described as a premium vinyl pressing, HQ 180, RTI, record technology. So yeah, it was at a reasonable price. Again, this is a used copy, and interesting that this one, unlike the original, is actually, so they have the original back there, and then gatefold, which the original I don't recall was. So, but a nice kind of gloss finish and colored vinyl. So there you go, and sounded really good. I mean, the album sounds great. I can't fault it, and always enjoy listening to this album. This rock classic that really, I mean, gosh, when this came out, 1976, boy, I mean, it changed rock radio for sure after this one with the productions of Mr. Tom Schultz here. Okay, a little bit more rock and roll from Scotland. We've got Nazareth and Razzamajazz. Love that title track, Razzamajazz, and Woke Up This Morning. Another great rockin' Nazareth album. I was thrilled to pick up this Canadian sort of best of. This is the band Flood. I think there's another band called Flood but this is the spelling of F-L-U-D-D. And this was the band from the early to mid 70s. A lot of radio hits, very Beatles inspired. The band members that were featured on here is Brian and his brother Edward Pilling. But Greg Godovitz was a band member and then went on to form the band Gatto. But as I say, Beatles influence. But radio friendly. Turn 21 was a big hit. Get Up, Get Out, and Move On. The song Yes is really Beatles influenced. Come On was a hit. Cousin Mary. They had some sort of country rock thing going on, but as I say, Brother and Me, What an Animal, a lot of hits in just a short time. But a real Canadian classic, worth seeking out for sure. And always worth seeking out another Steel Eye Span album. This UK band had a lot of albums, and this is Sails of Silver. And the folk rock sounds of Steel Eye Span. And speaking of folk, have some Tom Rush to add to the collection. This is The Circle Game. So, of course, he covers the song Circle Game, also Urge for Going from Joni Mitchell. He also does Something in the Way She Moves by James Taylor. Folk classic artist Tom Rush. And on Elektra. Okay, and speaking of classic, how about Derringer or Rick Derringer? Very cool cover. This is Derringer and Sweet Evil. And of course, Rick Derringer of rock and roll hoochie coo fame. But this one came out in 1977. And again, it's just got that great rock and Rick Derringer sound. Very nice. And from Matthews Southern Comfort, also from Fairport Convention, an Ian Matthews album. And Ian has spelled his name slightly different over the years. But this is a promo copy, as you can see, of Ian Matthews. And the album is Some Days You Eat the Bear, and Some Days the Bear Eats You. What an album. And I have not gone wrong with any Ian Matthews albums. They're all great. Kind of singer-songwriter stuff, and this again on Elektra. He does the track I Don't Want to Talk About It, but sounding great. Ian Matthews, if you come across his stuff, pick it up. It's quite good. So again, a promo copy on this one. All right, and we've got a soft rock classic, Leo Sayer and Endless Flight. This has the big hits, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, and the ballad When I Need You. Leo Sayer. Okay, something a little different. How about Sammy Davis Jr. and Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. So this is a later production of this. This was an Anthony Newley classic. This was the play, Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. So this is the, I'm not sure if this is a Broadway production, but this is kind of like a revival of the show featuring Sammy Davis Jr. I can show you the back here. And this has the original inner sleeve, I believe, on this one, which is kind of cool. Just put advertisements there, and then on Warner Brothers records. And yeah, when did this come out? This came out, this on Warner Brothers from 1978. Sammy Davis Jr. And certainly one of the big track on this that is pretty much a Sammy Davis Jr. signature song is What Kind of Fool Am I? And I love Sammy Davis Jr.'s version of that song. He'd done that certainly years before this particular rendition, but again, as always, nails it once again on this album. Sammy Davis Jr. and Stop the World, I Want to Get Off. Okay, we've got Mike Oldfield, and this is QE2, and I don't know if you can kind of see, this is kind of supposed to resemble the QE2 luxury liner, and in fact, it's this one is, I think, an original copy because it's got this very simple die cut here, so it opens up like this, and then you get kind of more of the nautical stuff going on, and this, of course, on the Virgin record label. But Mike Oldfield and QE2. So happy to pick that one up. Okay, just got a few more to show you here. We've got very interesting. I was really pleased with this album. This was a thrift store find. This is Jose Feliciano and 10 to 23. And as you can see, the original sale price here. Very nice, and a lot of covers on here. Beatles covers, She's a Woman, Lady Madonna, Rain, Hey Jude, covers Bee Gees, Got to Get a Message to You, but also does Little Red Rooster. And the 10 to 23 is that there's a recording, the first recording as listed here, it says actual recording of Jose Feliciano at age 10. So it's going from roughly age 10 to, at the time, 23. But wow, this is a great album. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, so happy to pick that one up from the thrift store. Okay, we've got some solo stuff from Patrick Simmons, and this is the album Arcade. Patrick Simmons, of course, of the Doobie Brothers. This from 1983. Not a bad album, but the Doobie Brothers back touring with both Michael McDonald and Tom Johnson, and I've chatted with many friends who've seen the shows in southwestern Ontario and saying, you know, they're just sounding fantastic. Of course, with Patrick Simmons still very much a part of the Doobie Brothers. So some solo Patrick Simmons there. Procol Harum, and this is the album Something Magic, and this from 1970, I want to say 77 or 78, something in that ballpark. Didn't realize that this was their last album, and they wouldn't release another studio album for about 14 years after this one, in the early 90s. But this, again, still doing the prog thing. Side 2 is a full track called Worm and the Tree, still with Keith Reid on the lyrics. And still very much in the prog vein. Some really nice orchestral stuff going on here. And this also did include the original sleeve. A very nice picture of Keith Reid in the corner there. So yeah, really happy to pick up any and all Procol Harum. As I say, for the most part, you can't go wrong with any Procol Harum. Of course, with Gary Brooker. And the album Something Magic. But yeah, this one on Warner Brothers, which is interesting. So there you go. Okay, Canadian band. This is the band Surrender. And this band featured Alfie Zappacosta on vocals. And shortly after this band, Alfie Zappacosta, or simply Zappacosta, would have a solo career. He had a very big, almost operatic kind of voice. This is more in the rock vein. The guitarist, if I'm identifying the guitarist correctly with this band, Steve Jensen, great guitarist with this band. Surrender was very short-lived. This is from 1979. On this one, kind of having some fun, almost like a Chicago style cover on this one when they were sort of doing, well, it was almost kind of Norman Rockwell-ish looking kind of thing, or that sort of thing, but like that and like that. I'm not suggesting that this looks like a Norman Rockwell thing. I don't know what I'm saying here, but yeah. So this on Capitol Records, like that. All right, so there's that. And then after this, they followed it up with an EP, which is interesting because usually it's the other way around with bands. They usually have the EP and then they start releasing full-length albums, but I don't know if it was the So here they're a 5-person band, and then they were reduced to a 3-person band. So this might have been just kind of wrapping up the contract with the Capitol, and maybe if they had sights on Alfie's Apicosta picture there, because his solo career started pretty soon after this. In fact, this one features the song Start Again, which I think he's also recorded as a solo artist, which was a radio hit as well, Start Again. This one getting a little bit more in the sort of the pop vein, but still another good album. Okay, UK band Pretty Things, and this is the album Freeway Madness, and just love the Pretty Things, great harmonies, just a fantastic band, and really happy to have picked this one up. And this one, a promo copy, in fact, too, which I was delighted to see. It's interesting with some of them, you can't tell if they're promo copies until you either find the stamp somewhere on it or again get it out. And of course, take a look at the label. So, promo copy from Pretty Things. Okay, love this band, PFM, Italian prog rockers, and this is the album Cook. This is a live album. I believe the European version of this album is live in the USA, which is an interesting title because half this album was recorded in Toronto, in fact. So I think I prefer the PFM and the Cook title, but this is PFM. I don't have any live PFM until now. Great Italian proggy band and just intense and incredible. Really happy to pick that one up. Okay, pick this up at my thrift store. Andy Kim's Greatest Hits on Dot Records. Yes, please. Andy Kim, of course, co-wrote the big hit Sugar Sugar for the Archies. Doesn't sing on that particular track, but Andy Kim had a number of big hits on his own. Be My Baby, Baby I Love You, How Do We Ever Get This Way, Shoot 'Em Up Baby, Rainbow Ride, all either Canadian or American hits. I've Been Moved, So Good Together. Really happy to pick this one up. So this pretty much has all the, the Andy Kim that you're pretty much going to need. And looking very dapper on the cover there as well on Dot Records. Maybe I'll show you the Dot label because you don't often get to see the Dot label. And Dot/Paramount on this one. Okay, so there you go. And we've got the band Human League, and this is the album Crash. When first looking at this, I thought maybe this was just the a 12-inch or the EP, but no, this is the full-length album. And I guess they had a completely different cover in mind, but then weren't happy with it, and then just went with this sort of quickly done photo session, despite all the money they had previously spent on a big cover, but that they weren't happy with. But this has the song Human, which is a ballad kind of song and a big radio hit for Human League. And the album Crash. Okay. Elvis Costello and the Attractions. This is the album Blood and Chocolate, where Elvis Costello is called Napoleon Dynamite, and apparently with the movie they said no, they weren't influenced by that, but I find that hard to believe. Another great Elvis Costello and the Attractions album. It still has that sort of early Elvis Costello sound. This one co-produced by Nick Lowe. So happy to pick this one up, and this one has the original sleeve, and this also, yes, is a promo copy as well. I seem to be in luck with some of my promo copies, or at least the inner sleeve, or shall we say the original insert. And of course on Columbia. Okay, just a few more, although I think I've said that a few times. How about some Ry Cooder? And this is the album Chicken Skin Review. Showtime Chicken Skin Review. Always happy to pick up any and all Ry Cooder. Never go wrong with the Ry Cooder albums. Fantastic. Live recording on that one. Formerly of the Allman Brothers. How about Dickie Betts? And this is Dickie Betts and the Great Southern. Fantastic, fantastic guitar work, as always, with Dickie Betts. Always happy to pick up a Dickie Betts record. And this on Arista. And last album, promise, for this one, is the Michael Stanley Band. This is, again, a band from Cleveland, Ohio. Did well, but just never kind of got to that really big level. But I don't know, if you're going to start with the Michael Stanley Band, this might not be a bad place to start. And, of course, it has the signature of the original owner there. This is a 2-album live set called Stage Pass. And, man, This album rocks from start to finish. I don't know what else I can say, but absolutely enjoyed this album. And as I say, there's a few Michael Stanley band albums out there, but this one would not be a bad place to start in terms of a nice double live album. This one came out in 1977. All right, so that is going to wrap it up for this one. Thank you again so much for dropping by, and of course, we'll chat again soon. Do take care. Bye-bye.